Boy, oh boy, the last 24 hours has been pretty crazy, kind of exciting, and a little bit confusing when it comes to the world of Pokemon, and especially the world of the Nintendo Switch, and maybe even the Nintendo Switch 2. So if you're already familiar with this story and this discussion going around, then it probably won't surprise you that I'm making this video, because clearly I have a lot of thoughts on this whole concept and idea. It's potentially very exciting, but like I said, it's also a little bit confusing, at least this exact story and the thing that's making everyone talk about the idea of the Switch 2 right now. It's just very odd. I do, of course, have to add that this is all pretty exciting for a few reasons. One of the main ones for me is just because, I mean, as a Nintendo fan and a gamer, I think it's always exciting when new hardware might be coming or might be shown or might release and what have you. That's always a ton of fun. We always look forward to that. And of course, as you know, it's something that I've believed in for a while now. Basically, around 3 years or so, I've thought that this made sense to maybe see happen this year. So, I mean, time will tell. There's still a lot of the year left to go, so nothing is confirmed. But it would be really fascinating and interesting and exciting to see if this all does happen the way we're starting to think that it might happen. However, specifically this thing we're about to talk about with the Pokemon thing and the connection to the prediction about this next-gen Switch or whatever that might happen in 2023, I do think it's curious because I don't think it's quite as black and white as some people maybe want to hope. And so I hope that my perspective as somebody who's already been predicting this anyway might feel a little bit more interesting, at least for that reason. Alright, so let's dive in here. There was earlier today a Pokemon presentation. I believe they're called Pokemon Presents, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, the disclaimer I want to give any new viewers here at this part of the conversation is that I am actually not a Pokemon fan. I don't follow or play the franchise in any way, shape, or form. My wife is a big fan. I have a couple of friends who are big fans. I've got nothing against Pokemon. I never have, but it doesn't appeal to me. So I'm pretty dumb when it comes to understanding a lot of how the story and the lore and the game releases and the Pokemon presentations and stuff happen, because even as a huge Nintendo fan and game fan, I just don't really follow it personally. So all I can say is that I know there was a Pokemon presentation today, and that a lot of people who are Pokemon fans were excited about it. This happens, I don't even know if these are annual presentations. I feel like I see a Pokemon Presents thing happen at least once a year. But you guys who know better than me can tell me if I'm wrong. But either way, today was the new Pokemon Presents presentation, and the big thing that I know came out of it, I was able to follow online, is that DLC for the two newest games, which is called Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, was officially confirmed, and they're going to be releasing this year. Very exciting for Pokemon fans. I hope it's very good and everyone enjoys it. But the weird story that came out of this that leads us to a Nintendo Switch 2 conversation is the fact that on 4chan of all places, and yes, everyone is laughing about the fact that this thing came from 4chan, as they should, because holy freaking crap, it's 4chan. What a waste of time. But a couple of days ago, somebody apparently, and again, I haven't even watched the presentation, so I'm just going off of the people I know out there and trust who do follow this stuff, who have corroborated this. Apparently, a lot of the things this person said in their post was accurate. They claim to know or be working, they basically claim to be working for the Pokemon Company on a lot of these products, and so they made a statement about what was going to be showing up in the game several days ago before today's presentation, and I guess most or all of what this person said in this post did happen in today's presentation. So right off the bat, we've got credence to what they might be saying, and then they finish with the very interesting conversation. So let's take a look at this post right here, and you can see what they say. The first thing they say is, I am a programmer at a Pokemon outsourcing company, right? So not Pokemon company itself necessarily, but some kind of third-party contracted company potentially. They say my English is very poor, so I used machine translation to complete this post. A little bit strange when we start turning this into like a rumor kind of thing, but I understand if that's maybe what this person had to do. Then they say all these things about Pokemon. And again, I don't know anything about it, but apparently all of these things that this person is listing, or maybe a lot of these things that they're listing, were true. Again, as of several days ago, before we even knew there was a Pokemon show, this person apparently predicted all these things you see here that I guess did happen and were confirmed. So pretty big deal. You don't have to be a Pokemon fan to be able to know why that's a big deal for someone to state this and get it correct. And then we come to the most important thing, which is the very last statement. They say, we are working on a graphics enhancement patch for the new Nintendo Switch models that will be released alongside DLC 2. Okay, so a lot of information there, a lot to unpack about this post that this person made on 4chan and everything I just vomited out to you guys about this whole situation, right? Because it's interesting and exciting, but also just kind of strange, right? So we're talking about somebody who seems to be on the inside and somebody who predicted or at least stated facts about some very accurate predictions about a Pokemon presentation days before it actually happened. And then we have them make the statement about new Switch models releasing alongside DLC 2. So what I believe is happening is that there's 2 DLCs coming out for the new Pokemon games, which I do know happens usually with the DLC. And so I think that the second DLC comes out at the end of 2023, and this person is saying that they're working on an enhancement for the graphics of the new Pokemon games, okay? So we're talking about enhancing graphics for new Nintendo Switch models releasing at the same time as DLC 2 at the end of 2023. So let's jump right into this, right? Everyone's focused on the new Nintendo Switch models and the fact that it's coinciding with a graphics update for one of Nintendo's biggest franchises. It's a big deal. And it's pretty exciting, and I've spent a couple days, well, okay, I've spent 3 years talking about this, but in the right here and now, I've spent a couple days mostly focused on Nintendo dropping out of E3, and the fact that the back half of their year is a complete mystery after Pokemon in July. And apparently there are reports that are now kind of going back and forth, to be fair, that IGN and VGC and others have talked about that they've heard Nintendo has acknowledged they have a light lineup for the back half of the year, and that's why being a part of E3 didn't make sense to them. And so there's just a lot going on that shows, along with my prediction that I started back in 2020, that we might see Nintendo reveal or release new hardware in 2023 or 22, but I also was thinking 2023 maybe made sense as well. It's like a lot of stars are aligning for Nintendo to reveal or release, according to this, new hardware maybe at the end of the year, because this person is talking about new Switch models and better graphics for Nintendo games. So here's the thing. I'm kind of conflicted about this, and it might be strange for those of you who have been following me for a long time and maybe followed my journey, my evolving thoughts on this whole next-gen thing and why I thought this was a time period that might make sense, while always acknowledging that maybe I'm wrong. I've just been guessing, and maybe it all happens next year and I'm wrong. But I'm conflicted on this because while I do think we're going to probably see Nintendo's new hardware, or at least get a confirmation or a trailer or something before 2023 is over, I also find these comments, as much as they kind of corroborate that, I also in some ways maybe find it to be the opposite, because there's not a lot of clear information to go on. And of course, whether it's true or whether it's just a convenient fabrication for the sake of getting a leak out there, they say that their English isn't very great and they use machine learning, you know, like a Google Translate or whatever to create their post. And like, if that's true, then that's fine. But we're in sketchy 4chan Nintendo leak territory, right? So who knows what's actually reality? So it could be a clever way that this person baked something into their post to try to give them an out if something isn't what it seems. And so when I read this statement, graphics enhancement for Pokemon for the new Nintendo Switch models, I do think we will see and hear confirmation of Nintendo's new hardware in 2023. I'm mostly leaning towards it releasing in 2024 though, so there's that. Again, just as a prediction. This person is saying that they would release this year, but when I hear new Nintendo Switch models and Pokemon and all this, I'm like, what if they're just talking about new Pokemon branded Nintendo Switches, like the regular current Switch and Switch OLED, you know, all of the current Switches that are based on the 2017 architecture from the original release? Because every version of the Switch out there, I know they upgraded the battery in one, and then they did the OLED stuff. It's still all the 2017 Switch hardware, right? Based on its power and graphics output and just capability, the architecture, the way developers develop their games for the Switch, that's all the same. I am not a smart guy when it comes to tech stuff, a lot of you guys know, but I'm smart enough to at least know everything on the market currently is still that 2017 basic structure. And so I think that there's kind of a chance that this is just talking about like Pokemon branded Switch OLEDs or Pokemon branded Switch Lights, or maybe even something that isn't Pokemon branded. Maybe it's going to be branded with some other game or some other weird, unique twist on the current Switch and Switch OLED models, that's not a next gen or a Switch 2 or a Switch Pro or whatever kind of thing. What if it's just one of those and it's releasing the same day or the same time as the DLC for the new Pokemon games, and they talk about the new graphics enhancement patch, and it's like, that could just be a regular patch for the current games. Like, you know, sometimes games, including Nintendo games, get patches that just improve performance and resolution like a little bit. Granted, the graphics patches and performance patches for most Switch games have not been very effective in my opinion and in my experience for the games I've tried, but they do happen, and so that's where this just gets really confusing to me, because I want to believe this is a sign for the Switch 2, and I even think the Switch 2 is gonna show up this year, but for some reason this reads as something different, so I just don't know which side to fall on here. It's like, do I fall on the side of this is being misinterpreted and they're just regular Switch models with Pokemon stickers on the back and it's just a slight graphics patch for the current Pokemon games, or is this talking about what we all want it to be? Is this talking about the thing I'm already predicting anyway, which again is part of the confusion in my brain about all this? And is this, yes, my long-running hope and prediction and theory is going to be correct, and it sure seems like it will be based on the games lineup right now, that at the end of this year, we will actually see these new consoles. And it's going to be maybe upgrading the graphics for a lot of games. And this person is just, they happen to work on the Pokemon games, so they happen to be working on the upcoming graphics enhancement for the Pokemon games. Just like somebody who works for any other company would be working, you know, if you're making patches for Mario games, for Zelda games, for Xenoblade games, whatever, for the new Switch or the new Nintendo hardware, maybe there's a ton of these being worked on across the board for a lot of Switch games, right? Even third-party developers who have their own third-party games on the Switch. That just could be what's happening, right? I mean, if Nintendo's next big jump in power and their next big console is coming out at the end of this year, or is at least going to be revealed at the end of this year, then most of the industry and most of the biggest developers already know about it. Those dev kits would have to be out there, and people would have to know the architecture to start planning their own games for that device in the coming years. And again, if they have current games on the current Switch that will be playable on the new device, backwards compatible, and get graphics enhancements because the new thing is going to be so capable, everyone should be working on this stuff. And so maybe this person is just working on the Pokemon equivalent of the graphics update. And so it's fascinating. But, you know, at the beginning of the video, a few times I said that I find this confusing, and it just comes back to what I mentioned. It's the confusion in my brain about how to feel, because it's everything I want and everything I've believed. Switch 2 shown or released in 2023 by the end of the year. And even the first 2 months of 2023 has even made me feel it more than I did before this year started. Then this comes out, which seems to state the same thing, but it's giving me a different vibe. I'm only talking gut feeling here, guys. So, you know, I hope that still has value when you hear me talk about it, you know, in this conversation. My gut feeling is like, this could mean Switch 2, but it could not. Maybe this is just talking about other weird Switch models with different brandings on it. It's very exciting, but it's so weird. So I think my ultimate thesis here near the end of this conversation is just going to be to reiterate what I felt for a while and not overly think about the Pokemon stuff in this 4chan post. I'm not going to let this influence my thoughts and cloud my mind. I won't let the dark side win, okay? I'm just going to stick to what I've always felt. This post doesn't really negate that. In a lot of ways, it helps it. Maybe it's the opposite, but I'm not even going to worry about this post. What I felt and what I still feel is that before 2023 is over, before December 31st of this year, we will know something official from Nintendo about their next hardware. That is my personal guess, prediction, theory, right? Just like it has been since 2020. I think it's going to happen before the end of this year. And that could be just Nintendo confirms it in like a press statement, you know, like they did with the Nintendo NX back in the day. They're just going to say, oh, we're working on the new thing and it's called this, or it's codenamed this, or whatever. Or there might be a teaser trailer, or there might be a full-on reveal like when the Switch was revealed in 2016, you know, or whatever, or it releases. Like, one of those things will probably happen in 2023. Could it release this year? Yes, I think there's a chance it releases this year. About 30 to 40% of me thinks it could also release in the holiday of this year, actually, like this says. But most of my feeling tells me it would probably still launch next year. So I think we're going to see it or have it confirmed at the end of 2023, and then it's going to release maybe in the first half of next year, right? And then Nintendo, by the time they confirm it, if they confirm it at the end of this year, they can start unloading all these confirmations and trailers about games they're making for it. They can show us Metroid Prime 4, they can show us Super Mario Odyssey 2, they can show us a new Donkey Kong game, and a 2D Mario, and I'm just spitballing stuff. All these games that we think they might be making that are probably going to be better suited for their next-gen console in the next 6 to 18 months than they would be for the Switch in 2023, right? So, Pokemon post on 4chan or not, that's just what I think. And luckily, even though this post gives me some doubts, it doesn't actually hurt my theory or prediction. And like I said, in some ways it even kind of helps. It's very curious. I would love to know what you guys really think about this. There's been a lot of conversation, a lot of people, a lot of good friends and YouTuber fellow friends of mine, you know, Player Essence and Andre's Restart Nintendo Prime. They were all making some videos about this earlier today that I saw, which I think is cool. And some other videos from channels I don't even know. I mean, the conversation's going around about Switch 2. This is confirming the whole thing. And I want it to be true because I believed it since 2020. So, I don't know. I want to know if you guys think that this actually means what people think. Is this Switch 2? Is it something else? Does my theory make sense to you still? I'm curious, man. So, I don't know. I guess we'll wait to see. You know, we got 10 more months to go to see if this Pokemon person's post is actually correct.